I'm just waiting for Facebook. All right, here we go. All right, hello, welcome everybody to our weekly live that we're doing now. So in this week's live, I'm going to be continuing to talk about living a life from feeling versus living a life from intellect. And I was going to just kind of jump right in, but I want to talk about why this is such an important topic and why I'm so passionate about talking about this and have been talking about this basically for the entire time that I've been talking. And that is because the world we are moving into and the evolution of our consciousness is this next phase that we're going through is going to be about moving into working from this higher level of awareness, this higher level of intelligence that goes beyond the simple, linear, logical mind, the left brain that we've been living in as a society for a long time. And this is not because there's something wrong with the mind or the left brain way of thinking or our linear, logical, problem-solving ways of being. Okay, this was an evolution, and now we're evolving again, and that is what life is. So this is not about demonizing or making wrong any part of our journey or anything that we've learned or anything that we've acquired. Okay, the left brain way of thinking is still going to be a part of what we are stepping into. It's still going to be a part of where we are going, but it's no longer going to be the leader. Okay, so a long time ago I made a video called "The Intuition is the CEO and the Mind is the Manager." And essentially what I was talking about in that video is that what we are as a humanity going to be stepping into is living a life where we get our initial information from our feeling states, okay? Where intuition, feeling, this much more feminine way of taking in information is how we take in information. And then it is up to the logical mind, the masculine, grounded in the earth, how do we get from point A to point B, to take that information, the overarching big picture that we got from feeling, to take that information and figure out how to make it logical, step by step, livable in the 3D reality. So this is not about getting rid of the logical mind. This is not about saying getting rid of the masculine, getting rid of order, structure, groundedness in this 3D reality. This is not about that at all. This is actually about becoming aware that a transcended spiritual state is one that is deeply connected and rooted in reality. And that reality is a lot bigger than we think it is. Reality is a lot more complex than we think it is. And reality comes to us first through experience. Okay? We learn as experiential beings, and then our intellect is informed. So right now, we are in a time where, the things that the light workers have been saying for decades, that, the structures are crumbling and everything we know is going to fall apart and this system isn't working and we need a new way and we need a new earth and we have all this stuff. Okay. From my vantage point, what we are experiencing right now, this crumbling of our normalcy, is cause and effect. Okay, we are not being punished, and it's not random. And we can look at this And we can say, okay, if we understand if you jump off a cliff, you're going to fall to the earth and probably break bones. We can understand that. And we can look at that, and no one would say, you're being punished by falling to the earth and having your bones be broken when you jump off a cliff, right? No one would say that's a punishment from God. No one would say that's a sign that you're bad and wrong, right? We would all just say that's a law of nature. That's gravity. That's gravity working exactly how it should. When we jump off a cliff, we fall to the ground because that's how gravity works. And if we have the desire to fly, the more we understand about how reality functions, the structure and nature of reality, the more we can create what we wish to create, the new things we want to experience within it. We can create something like an airplane. We can create a hang glider. We can create all these different ways that humans can fly. But if we just look at how a bird flies and try to apply that to ourselves, like we should be able to jump off something and flap our arms and fly, and then we fall to the ground, again, would we say that person is being punished? Would we say that person is fundamentally bad and wrong? Would we say they should feel guilty and terrible about themselves that they did that? No, we would just say that's the law of reality. That's the structure and nature of reality. And part of the way that humanity has been learning about the structure and nature of reality. Okay, and this is another thing that I really wanted to say first things off the bat. So many of us have a resistance to accepting that there's a structure to how reality works, that there are laws, that this is just the way that it is cause and effect. Because many of us make that mean that we can't have what we want. That if there's a structure, if there are laws, if there are rules, that those things are inhibitive of us having what we want. So we don't want to believe that there are laws. We don't want to believe there's a structure. We don't want to believe that there are rules to how reality works, because most of us have had an experience with rules simply being you can't have what you want. And especially if we've tried to go and create what we want, we've tried to have experiences that we wanted and it didn't work out, we can feel like we were being punished or like the laws are against us, right? Like people who get sick oftentimes say, why does my body hate me? Or why am I being punished like this? Why is this happening to me? And when we start to understand that there is no judgment in the universe, there is no morality in that this is good and this is bad, this is right and this is wrong. Rather, there's just a structure to how reality is. Because again, if there was no structure, there could be no experience. Like we need to understand that the structure and the nature of the reality of the earth that we live on, it has to be that way in order for there to be an experience at all. If there was no structure, if there was no stability at all, if there were no rules, no laws, there could be no experience. So structure, nature, rules, laws are not inherently inhibitive. It is our lack of understanding of how the laws work and our lack of capacity to create within them that blocks us from having what we want. Okay? Because again, how this reality works is simply you can't break a law. You can only break yourself against the law. We get sick for a plethora of reasons, okay? Because again, the second thing about reality, the structure of our reality, is that it's very complex. It's not simple. It's not just A equals B. It's multifactorial and it's incredibly complicated and complex. And this is another reason why most people resist this idea, because the idea that it's complicated, the idea that it's complex overwhelms us. We all feel that inner child of I can't figure it out and this is too much and I would rather just believe it's simple Law of attraction. I'm just going to think about what I want and then I'll get it, right? We want it to be simple, or we want it to just not be rules at all. Because again, to us, in our perceptions, that's the only way we're ever going to be happy. That's the only way we're ever going to get what we want and be able to maintain it. And so what we are moving into, if we are people who want to evolve, is simply that reality is complex, that it has a structure, and if we want to create joy within it, first things first is we have to recognize that we, just like every other living organism on this planet, has a fundamental structure that needs to be honored and supported. And then when it isn't, we get sick. Just like everything else on the planet, right? Like, we can be very good and very conscious that when a plant gets sick, if a plant's leaves start to wither and die, we think, what's wrong with the environment? What's wrong with the food? How is this plant not getting what it needs? Right? When a plant expresses that it's in pain, which is what it's doing, when its leaves are withering, when it's not growing, when it's not producing flowers when it should, when it's not producing fruit when it should, we go, what's off in the plant's environment? We don't go, what's wrong with the plant? How is this plant broken? I wonder if it has faulty genes. I wonder if it's shitty. Like, this plant is just morally abhorrent and it's being punished by reality. We would never think that, because that understanding, we understand reality enough that it's like, well, no, that plant has specific needs. If those needs aren't being met, it reacts in pain. It expresses in shadow, right? Withered leaves, not having fruit, all of these things could be seen as the same thing as a human who's an addict, as a human who's physically ill, as a human who has anxiety and depression. We need to start thinking of ourselves like natural parts of this living ecosystem that are not above nature, are not outside of nature, and have a specific nature. And yes, that puts laws and restrictions on us. That means we can't just do whatever we want and expect perfect health, vitality, to feel connected to everyone and everything. We are allowed to do whatever we want, meaning you can go and eat nothing but donuts and stay up all night and jump on your bed and do whatever you want. But you can't do those things and also expect to have vibrant health and to feel connected to your purpose and have great relationships in your life. We need to start to honor and expect and respect that we are living in a cause and effect universe, that when we break the laws of reality, we are going to suffer and be in pain. That is how this works. So part of what we are facing right now is what I believe is going to be the beginning of a big shift for humanity. I think we're going to see a lot of things that are going to come in the coming years of the systems that we have in place showing the cracks in their consistency with reality. Okay? Because we are very creative and we are very powerful creative beings. And like I said, we can create a lot of things. We can do a lot of things. But there are always going to be consequences to our actions. And again, so we can look at this virus, and some people are saying it's 5G. Some people are saying it was from a bat. Some people are saying it's the terrain, right? We're cesspools on the inside, and it's our bodies. Some people are saying it's a contagious disease. This is how contagions spread. We're an interconnected human race, and we passed it on to each other. Some people are saying it's electromagnetic frequencies. Some people are saying it's corrupt government. Some people are saying it's vaccines. Some people are saying it's all these things. And what I would say is, we probably have to look at this and say, this is multifactorial, that probably all of the above have some influence on what's going on with us right now. And again, I don't want that to be an overwhelming, like, oh my God, I can't control this. There are so many things outside of my control. There's so many things that governments are doing and groups are doing that I can't stop. And how can I be healthy when all of these things are happening to me? And I get it. And this is why I feel that this work of learning how to live from feeling is so pertinent right now, because it is complicated. It is complex. It is multifactorial. And the logical mind only knows what it's already been through. Okay? Our logical, linear, masculine mind, our problem-solving brain, pattern recognition brain, only knows what it's already been through. It's really good at figuring out what the consistent reality is and how to operate within that. But what we are seeing right now is the consistent reality is changing. The structures we've been living in are changing. And again, this is sort of a misnomer, because nature and reality isn't changing. Real reality isn't changing. And all the sensitive, empathic, shamanistic, physically, mentally, emotionally sensitive beings who have been sick for a very long time have been showing us the consequences of our actions. We are living out of alignment with reality. We are breaking ourselves against the laws. We're being born with cancer. We're epidemics of anxiety and depression. People don't know what they want. We're becoming zombies. We're more and more and more having to disembody, get out of our feelings, because there's so much pain. So reality isn't changing. Okay, and this is another big thing that we have to understand, that it's not like things were working and now they're just falling apart because reality changed. Reality didn't change. We, again, are allowed to do whatever we want. And we live in time. And this is how we're learning about reality. Because if there was no time, if there was no of this concept of linear time that we are experiencing, we could not see the cause and effect relationship of our actions and the reaction. Time is grace. When everyone's out there is praying for grace, and praying for grace, and praying for grace, and praying for peace. Grace is that there's time, and that we can learn from our behaviors before they destroy us. That is what grace is. We are all covered in grace. Pain, being able to feel pain before you die, before something kills you, like way before something kills you, that's what grace is. That's literally the definition of grace, is what are the consequences of my actions before they are fatal to me. That is the definition of grace. So we are living in a graceful universe where we are allowed to do things, we are allowed to feel them, and we are allowed to change course when something feels bad before it kills us. And through doing that, we learn about reality. So it is not wrong to break ourselves against reality. Not at all. We are going to be the humans who break ourselves against reality for the rest of the human race. Because that's how we're learning. It's a beautiful, perfect thing to do. There's no such thing as a mistake. Never once in all of reality has a human ever made a mistake, because everything that we do is an experience that is feeding back information about our reality to consciousness itself, to humanity. Whether we want to take it in our human life or not, doesn't matter. Humanity is learning from it. Consciousness is learning from it. So there are no mistakes. Everything is, this is how reality works because it creates thriving. This is how reality doesn't work because it creates destruction. And that's what grace is, and that's what reality is. So reality isn't changing. Okay? Reality isn't changing. our awareness of reality is changing. Our experience of reality is changing. And the systems that we had set in place of how we thought reality worked are changing. Okay, so real reality isn't changing. This is always how it was. This is always how it was. Nothing is changing in real reality. Humans always needed sunshine, fresh air, to be outside, to eat foods that are natural, not made in a chemical plant, to have relationships with each other, to be connected. This hasn't changed. But what we're seeing is the consequences of us living not that way are getting harsher and harsher and harsher. Because the farther we go away from that which is natural to us, the more pain we are going to experience. Because again, that's the feedback system. That's grace. If there was no pain when we lived out of alignment with ourselves, we would die and have no reason why. We would not be able to evolve. We would not be able to become more aware of reality. Pain is grace. Okay? So reality isn't changing, but our systems and what our logical mind knows about and knows how to operate within are changing. This isn't, we're not going to be able to keep going the way that we've been going. The consequences are getting too extreme. We are going to have to adapt to how reality actually is, or we are going to continue to break ourselves against laws of reality until we break ourselves completely, right? Until we destroy ourselves, because we cannot break a law. We can only break ourselves against a law. And we know we are following a path of evolution when our lives are becoming less and less painful, more and more ordered, more and more simple, more and more creative, more and more connected to something outside of human consensus reality. Okay? And again, I know that can sound like really esoteric, and some of these things are going to sound really esoteric. And it's not until you have an experience of them that it's going to feel like, oh, that's what she was talking about. Okay? Like I'm not going to be able to give you as much like a clear example of what this is going to be as people would like a lot of the time. And that's not because I'm not doing it. It's because you're not going to understand it until you experience it. Because again, that's how we actually learn. We don't learn intellectually. We don't learn from sitting and listening to me. We get ideas, we have inspiration, but we learn through experience. I know what I know because I've lived it, not because I read it in a book. Okay? And that's why I can talk about it, because it's actual learning at that point. So the logical mind is not going to carry us forward. Okay, this is what we need to understand. The logical mind is not going to carry us forward because forward requires something new from us. Forward requires something new from us. And the logical mind only knows how to do what it's already done. The logical mind only knows how to operate in the system it already understands. The logical mind only knows how to do the same things in slightly different ways. So this is why so many of us on our healing journeys, on our path in general, we get stuck and we think we're doing something different. We always think this diet is different from all the other ones. This relationship is going to be different from all the other ones. This job is different from all the other ones. And then eventually we end up in the same place that we were with the other jobs and with the other diets and with the other location and with the other relationship, because we're just doing the same thing in slightly different ways, tricking ourselves into thinking we're doing something different. And that's the logical mind. It only knows how to do what we've already done. New information, new awareness, that which we have never seen before and never done before, creativity, expansion of awareness comes from feeling. So this is why, as the world changes, and as we start to say, okay, the old system didn't work, it wasn't in alignment with reality, it crumbles, and it's crumbling, and it crumbles so easily because it's not in alignment with reality. And this is another thing that you will start to experience as you start to align yourself with real reality. The life generation path is actually harder to break, harder to mess up, harder to fall off of than the life degenerating path. So many people believe that in order to live an ordered lifestyle, you have to put in so much effort. You have to work really, really hard. You have to be super, super disciplined. And I would say in the beginning, in order to get yourself on that path, requires discipline and order and structure and strength. But once you get on it, once you start living this life from feeling, and you start living this life of, I'm not going to go my way, I'm going to figure out what reality is and align myself with that and choose to create what I want within that, and see that if I don't get what I want, I need to change. It's not to ask reality to change or to give up. It's to say, okay, why didn't it work? What did work about it? What didn't work? How can... The more we start to build our lives in a way that align with the structure of reality, the less feeble and the less they are, the less capacity they have to just fall apart. Okay? I'm losing the word here. The less vulnerable, that's what it is. The less vulnerable they become, the less fragile they become, that you actually are going to start to understand and feel and experience for yourself that a life-generating life, once you get on it, it carries itself. It carries you forward. You will continue to grow, learn, change, evolve, and expand, and you will have to exert effort to stop it. Okay? So this idea that living in alignment with reality is harder and that it's easier to just live in the destructive life, it's not true. And it's that if your habits and the things that you're doing to try to become in alignment are really, really difficult to maintain and they fall apart the second something happens in your life, either the shift didn't take place yet or it's not really a life-generating thing. Because this is a big part of something that I've learned, that the things that are ordered and truly life-generating in my life at this point are second nature. I would have to try hard to not do meditation, to not do my yoga, to not eat the way that I eat. It would actually be more effort. When we move, when life is crazy, when things happen, my habits don't fall apart. They maintain themselves through everything that I do. And I'm not putting forth massive amounts of planning effort to make all these things happen. They fit themselves in. The life-generating life, when you get on it, will maintain itself and it will constantly call you to growth. You won't have to then be putting forth effort to be on a learning and growing path and not falling to your lower nature. It will take you. You will, like I say, you will have to resist growth. You will have to try to not evolve. It will take effort to not be on the path. And that's something that, again, when you start to experience it, you're going to be like, man, okay, the growth path is actually easier. The path of destruction and chaos is so painful. And the only way that we as a humanity are surviving it right now is because we are good at numbing. It's because we are good at not feeling. It's because we are so good at living in the logical mind and negating feeling, negating the feedback we're getting from this higher wisdom point of this doesn't feel good. So another thing that you're going to notice, like literally as simple as this, when you are living in a life of feeling. So I'll go back to the macro in a second, but I'm going to go to the micro right now. When you're living a life of feeling, you will start to get to a place where people think you're magic. And it's because you will be able to put a food in your mouth and know that it's not good for you before you have to swallow it and have the stomach ache. You will be able to not even have to put the food in your mouth. You will be able to sense and feel, no, not for me. Yes, for me. This food is good. This food is going to be harmful. Where another person would have no idea that that food was rotten because it doesn't smell weird and it doesn't taste weird, and then they get a stomach ache 2 hours later because they had to eat it to learn it because they're not feeling. And they're going to be like, how did you know it was bad? Because I could feel. I can feel it. That when you start to live this life from feeling, you're going to be able to feel what other people are feeling in their bodies. You're going to be able to sense other people's emotions. And a lot of people already have this feeling thing, and we've been called crazy our whole lives, right? That we were feeling things that other people weren't feeling. And so much, like right now, especially like people who had like really hardcore anxiety about living in big cities, and they got out, and now this is happening. And like, holy smokes, it's a good thing they got out. Like for me, I had just for the last 10 years being essentially on this path of like, we have to get to Asia, we have to get a visa, we have to get things, we have to get online, we have to do these things, I have to switch my career, I have to do all these things. And now I'm in this place where I'm perfectly set up to ride this out. And that's because I followed my feelings the entire way here. Okay? And I was looked at as crazy. And I didn't know how I was going to create this life. My logical mind had no idea, because this life was something I'd never experienced before. This life was something I'd never been in before. I figured this out through feeling. I felt my way here. And then I used my logical mind to take what I was feeling and say, okay, how do we live that out in a 3D world? So it's not one or the other. It's putting them in order. So this is why living a life of feeling is vital moving forward, because we are stepping into the old ways are crumbling because they don't work. They don't align with reality. We are looking to create, she says, I live with a toddler and he does this feeling thing with food. Exactly. Don't condition that out of him, because that's what happened to all of us. We all have this. We all had this as children. The reason we don't live from it now is because it was conditioned out of us. Okay? And so this path of feeling, this path of awakening, this path of enlightenment, which are all the same thing. This is all enlightenment is. Oh, there's a reality. There's a structure to how it works. It's neutral. I'm unconditionally loved and safe to explore within this. That's what enlightenment is. That's it. Okay? Enlightenment is recognizing that there's a structure, that if you're in pain, you're living out of alignment with the structure, but that doesn't mean you're not worthy of love. That doesn't mean you're doing something wrong and bad. That doesn't mean you suck. It means nothing about your worthiness. So most of us have these stories. When we're in pain, so reality is telling us we're living out of alignment with reality, we go into self-blame or we go into projection, because that's what we learned as small children. And this is what I'm going to talk about in my next slide, that we all have these reactions to pain. Either I'm a victim and there's nothing I can do about it. What am I doing wrong? What's wrong with me? I'm terrible. I'm horrible. I'm shameful. I'm in pain. I'm horrible. My reactions to pain, my addictions, my coping mechanisms, my anxiety, my depression are all things that are wrong with me and bad about me and make me unworthy of love, and I have to fix these things about myself. Or it's up to them to change. It's someone else's fault and they need to fix it for me. Those are our 3 childhood reactions to pain that we learned in childhood and then never evolved from, because we didn't learn to problem solve. We didn't learn how to take our pain and get through the stories and not make a story about it and to say, why is this actually happening? So again, when we learn to sit with our feelings, we are going to be confronted with a lot of stories. We are going to be confronted with a lot of assumptions about ourselves and reality that we think are true that aren't necessarily true, that don't feel good to think, and we all of us think the worse something feels, the more true it must be. And then if we start to get into, okay, if it feels bad, it's not true, then that must mean its opposite is true. And that's obviously not usually the way that it is either. It's usually something far more complex that you've never felt before, you've never seen before. Your logical mind is not going to figure it out. So you're going to come into awareness of your painful beliefs, and you're going to feel your way through them, and you're going to observe reality and how it contradicts your beliefs. So I got a question. Out of alignment equals beliefs, programming that doesn't align with my structure, your structure, and the structure of reality. Yes, because they are similar. Okay? We are still one with nature. We are still living in bodies that are nature. These cells are Mother Earth, right? We're not transcending the body. We're evolving the earth with our consciousness. The earth is hosting us. As the earth and as a physical body, we are being hosted. Our consciousness is being hosted, and they are evolving together. And if we evolve one past the other, we blow out our consciousness. So everyone who's so into cleansing and trying to get back to being a fruitarian, or aligning getting lighter and lighter and lighter in their bodies, fasting, but they're not working on their belief systems, they're not working on their consciousness and all the other parts of their life, what happens? Their body gets so light, it gets destroyed. The consciousness leaves. People who only work on consciousness, it's all mind, it's all mental, it's all belief systems. It's just whatever I believe. I can make chocolate cake good for me if I believe it enough. Or if I just work and meditate enough, I will become enlightened, and then I will be free from pain. Because I will realize it's all an illusion. These people, what happens? They die from cancer. They physically get ill. They succumb to their lower nature over and over and over again. Because they didn't evolve together. So it's not one or the other. And again, this is why this is complex. This is why I've been talking about this. And this is why I have my mystery school, which is 2 massive curriculums. Because this is not easy. It is not easy to break through the stories that we are so sure are reality. Because we've never questioned them, and we've never had anything else, and we've never seen anything else. It is difficult to question our reality. It is difficult to even question what is a thought and what is an actual experience. What is a story and what is something we went through. Like, I was rejected for who I was. And that's not a story. That actually happened. So the story is, there's something wrong with who I am, and I shouldn't be this way. Because I was rejected. But you see, the experience was just I got rejected. The story is, there's something wrong with me, and I should be different. You see? So separating experience from story. And then what does the experience really mean? Well, it taught me how to be myself even when I'm being rejected. It taught me how to live in this reality. Like that, again, it set me up for this situation where I live completely differently than everybody that I know. And therefore, I am not suffering the same consequences. And again, please understand that I am not saying that people who are getting sick from this, or people who are losing their jobs or whatever, were stupid and didn't align and are suffering the consequences and it's their own fault. Okay? No, it's more complicated than that. I understand it's far more complicated than that. That getting out of reality, the consensus reality that we live in, is not easy, and people are trapped in it. And this information that I'm talking about, it's not readily available. And even if it is readily available, it's not made clear enough. And we are all very much mind controlled in the sense that we're locked in fear. We have been trained from our childhood that pain means there's something wrong and bad about us, or that we're victims and we can't do anything about it. So most people don't even know that there's another option. They don't even know that they can question their reality. They don't know that they could be different and get rejected and still survive. We don't know that. And so I am not sitting here and saying that, like, again, humanity's fault. You should have gotten out and you didn't. No, it's so much more complicated than that. And it's so, so deeply entrenched. And knowing how hard I had to work to get to where I am, it gives me 100% compassion for everyone who's not where I am, because this was really hard. And that's why I want to share this information. That's why I do this work. That's why this is all I do. I do this for free. I do this for paid. Because this is it. This is it. Learning how to feel. And this is the other thing. Gone are the days of the guru, the institution, the thing to look to give us all the answers. Because we are going to figure this out. That we learn through experience, and that it's by each one of us. So like you said, out of alignment with my structure. Okay, so two things there. There is a universal structure. So there is not a single human being on this planet who can survive without sunshine and thrive. There's not a single human being on this planet who can thrive without self-awareness practices. And there is not a single being on this planet who can thrive eating nothing but McDonald's. Okay? Universal laws. There are certain things that are just applicable to all of us. And we need to embrace that. That we're not so unique that we're outside of nature. We're not so unique that we're totally unlike other mammals. We're not. We're an evolved version. We're a more complex version. Our needs are more complex. Our capacity to handle being out of alignment is more complex because our level of awareness is more complex. So the more aware you are, the more complex you are, the more you can go out of alignment with the structure without destroying yourself. The simpler you are, the more your needs are going to be a knife's edge, and the more just little shifts one way or another destroy you. Like an enzyme, the temperature is raised in your body a couple of degrees or is lowered a couple of degrees, the enzyme dies. But the body doesn't. The body can handle a fever of 100 before we die because we're complex. The complexity is what adds to our capacity to be out of alignment and to learn bigger things. So there's the universal structure of things that we need to learn. And then there's the relative structure, the who you are, the what you need to thrive. So this is where purpose, the types of relationships that work for you, the type of work that is best suited for you, the type of home environment. There are many, many ways to thrive as human beings that are not so specific to everyone, but are very specific to each one of us. So this is another reason why reality is complex, because there are certain things that are very important for me to thrive that are not important at all for other people to thrive. They are relative, right? It's so important for me to do things like this, where there are a lot of people out there who will never do something like this and are going to be completely amazing. You see? So this, again, is why the days of the guru are over. I am not here to be a guru. I am not here to tell you the answer to your problems. You have problems. You have pain in your body. You don't know what your purpose is. You don't know how to find the right relationship. You don't know why you keep doing the same things over and over again. You have addictions. You have these things. It is not my job to tell you why those things are happening. It is my job to teach you how to feel so that you can figure out for yourself why those things are happening, and then you can figure out for yourself what you need to do instead. That's empowerment. Because ultimately, you don't want a parent. Because that's what we're all looking for when we're looking for a guru, when we're looking for an institution, when we're looking for a system, the vipassana, the guru, the lineage, all of these things that we've been, the religion, the governmental party, the ideologicalness, the group that we fit into. We're looking for the group, we're looking for the leader, we're looking for the someone who has the answers. No. Look for the person who will teach you how to get your own answers. Because that's liberation. And I know that that's scary, right? That's adulthood. I'm no longer living in a reality where I am dependent upon those around me to save me from my pain. Where I am going to look at my pain and try to manipulate myself or manipulate the world into solving my pain for me. And I am going to say, why am I in pain? What is this really? And how do I change my own life? Okay, because again, my parents didn't teach me any of these things. I never had a guru. I've never followed a lineage. I've rebelled from every path I've ever been on. I've never done a Vipassana. I've never done plant medicine. I was on a cleansing lifestyle before I even knew that was a thing. I never followed diet gurus. I tried. I've taken little bits and pieces from different people. This is the thing, right? I've taken what worked from lots of different people. But ultimately, I was taking what worked in reality. It wasn't the guru. So anything that I offer you that works is not from me. If it works, it's because it's reality. And you will know it because it brings more order, structure, creativity, freedom, lightness, expansion, awareness, empowerment to your life. You will know if it's working. So if you're doing practices and you're like, I don't know if this is working. Well, yeah, if it's not practically doing something in your life, look at it. What are you trying to get out of it? What are you doing this for? What are you thinking it's going to give you? Maybe the practice is working, it's just not working the way you expected it to. Maybe it's not working the way you expected it to, but it's working in a different way. Maybe it's showing you, everything is showing you something. So when we start to live from this feeling place, we let go of the idea that pain and pleasure mean we're doing something right or wrong. We let go of the idea that mistakes can be made. And we say we are learning from everything. The point of this is to feel, and when we understand that something hurts, we say, okay, why did it hurt? What is that showing me about the structure of reality? Why did this feel good? What is that showing me about the structure of reality? And this is why I talk about like addictions this way. It feels good to do our addictive behavior because it is meeting a need on some level. It's meeting a need on some level that we are not getting met in any other way. So we want to embrace our addictive behavior and say, what am I getting out of it? What would I lose if I didn't have this anymore? And we want to say, okay, that's a need that's in me that was probably shamed in my childhood that I need to embrace about myself, and how can I start to get that need met in a higher order, higher functioning way? So we don't get rid of an addiction. We understand the need the addiction was feeding. We figure out how to meet that need in a higher, more complex way. And then all of a sudden the addictive behavior is actually less effective than our new way of meeting our needs in the light. And then we've learned something about ourselves. We've exposed something about ourselves that's real. And so this whole process of being an addict is not a mistake. It's how we're learning about ourselves. That this is what happens when we don't get our needs met. We become addicted to certain things. That's humanity. And so we're not understanding ourselves. And so why we want to live a life of feeling. Last thing, there's a huge difference between living a life of feeling and living a life run by emotion. Okay, this is not the same thing as every time you feel anxiety, you quit. Every time you feel angry at someone, you yell at them. Every time you feel like you don't want to do something, you stop. That's not what living a life by feeling is. That's called being led by your emotions. The emotions are clusters of feelings, and they are things that we have stories about. I am feeling anxiety and it means this. We don't actually know that. Okay? When we live a life of feeling, we start to say, unless my reaction to my emotional state, again, brings more order to my life permanently, I'm wrong about what I think my emotion is telling me, and I'm wrong about my reaction to that emotion. So I need to go into feeling, which is, so when I'm feeling anxiety, what does it feel like in my body? Where do I feel it in my body? It's a tightness in my chest. It's a tightness in my gut. It's a shaking in my hands. That is what feeling is. And we talked about that in the last video. It's not anxiety. It's not depression. It's not anger. It's burning sensation in my chest. It's numbness in my arms. That's what feeling is. And we sit with that. Not to learn how to sit with pain. Because this is, again, a misunderstanding in the spiritual world. That we want to just learn how to be with pain to such a degree that we can light ourselves on fire and not cry out. That is not the point. Okay? We want to learn to be with pain to the degree that we can actually sit with it long enough that it informs us as to why it's happening, and then we change. Because it is not a form of intelligence to be able to sit with pain and let it destroy you and not cry out. It is not a sign of spiritual aptitude that you can sit in pain and let it destroy you. Okay? That's missing the point. The point is we're supposed to learn to sit with pain to the degree that we can actually understand it and then change based on that information. We change our diet. We change our relationship habits. We change our ways of being that actually solve the problem. But we took the time to sit with the pain long enough to figure out what the problem actually was because our stories were wrong. Unless your solution to your pain works permanently, makes your life more ordered, structured, and you don't go back to that pain anymore, you didn't figure it out. And there is an answer, and it's more complex than you think it is. And you need to sit with feeling a little bit longer. So I have a question. When sitting with your feelings, my mind just takes over to me to the point that I have trouble concentrating on feelings. How do I break that so I can focus on my feelings? That is, all of us are going to have this. Okay? There's nothing wrong with you that's what's going to happen. Your mind takes over to rescue you from feeling the pain. Okay? That's what your mind is doing. It's trying to protect you from feeling pain that you don't feel like you can do anything about. So you're either going to notice that, again, what is your reaction when you are in pain? When you are feeling your feelings and they are intense, do you throw yourself under the bus? Do you go into victim nature? There's nothing I can do about this. This pain is going to take over and it's going to be with me forever and there's nothing I can do. Or do you go into blaming, shaming the world? Or a combination of all of those things? The first step to learning how to feel is making feeling safe. And I'm going to talk about that in the next video. But we need to be able to feel that we are still loved and cared about and cared for in our pain. Otherwise, we are not going to feel safe enough to feel it. It's too traumatizing. We've all been so traumatized in our states of pain by being rejected, by being blamed, by being abandoned, or by being rescued that we don't know how to sit with our feelings anymore. Does this make sense? We don't feel safe enough to sit with pain, and so the brain is ejecting you. It's saving you from it. Until we have developed practices of self-love, true self-love, which means I am here for me. I can feel love and good enough and acceptance of myself when I'm in pain. Pain doesn't mean there's something wrong with me. Pain doesn't mean I'm a victim. Pain doesn't mean I'm helpless. Pain doesn't mean I'm doing something wrong and I'm horrible. And pain doesn't mean I'm trapped and someone has to save me. Pain means there's something to be learned here. And that's it. That's all it means. Until we can feel safe in our pain, we're not going to be able to sit with it. When we have all these other stories about our pain, what it means about us and what it means about life, the mind is always going to come in to save us. So you can ask yourself, what are the stories you're telling yourself about your pain? Start with that. What is the story your mind is trying to distract you from so that you don't have to feel the pain? Start with that. Okay, and we're going to, like I said, dive deeper into that in the next video. So the path of feeling is learning how to reconnect with our pain and reconnect with our pleasure. The real pain and real pleasure. Learning how to determine that from true reality versus consensus reality, right? What our nervous systems are programmed to do, what feels good for our nervous systems is what got us accepted. What feels bad for our nervous system is what got us rejected. Because again, in our childhoods, acceptance equaled provision. Our nervous systems learned that. And we are now all still trapped in our childlike perspective that if we get rejected or abandoned, we're going to die. Because we are not caught up to the fact that we are adults who can provide for ourselves now. We are not caught up to the fact that we are adults who have problem-solving capabilities. We are not caught up to the fact that we are adults who don't have to make everything our fault in order to change ourselves, because that's the only thing we have control over. You can now quit a job. You can move. You can learn a new way of eating, and no one else has to help you, and no one else has to participate. You are an adult who can change things for yourself. That's the first liberating thought. You don't have to do anything, and it doesn't rely on anyone else for you to make something better in your life. And yes, you are going to have to take responsibility for your life and for your feelings and how things feel for you. And saying, if this isn't working, even if it's what everyone else is doing, and even if it's what got me accepted and got me love and got me approval for my whole life, it's not working. I have to change. Go watch my video that I just posted on how to retrain the nervous system. Go watch all my YouTube videos. Come join my mystery school. I have a million tools to help you with that, because that is going to be a thing. Learning to feel is working through all of our nervous system programming, trauma. I'm still a child who has to be approved of, and if I'm not approved of, if I'm not rescued, I'm fucked. That's where most of us are at. But as we work through this and we reconnect to our feelings and we learn how to stop making it mean that we're terrible, and we learn how to stop making it mean that we're helpless, and we learn how to stop all of these things, and pain can just be a messenger that we lean into and learn from, this is going to be how we figure out the new reality. How, for you, what your next steps are for alignment, what your next steps are. Because for me, buying property is the next step. For someone else, it might be learning a new skill. And you're going to know that by feeling. It's going to feel exciting. It's going to feel liberating. It's going to feel like the next thing on your path. You're not going to be able to explain it. It's just going to feel like the right thing to do. And then it's not going to go how you think it's going to go, but it's going to go exactly how it needs to go to teach you what you need to learn. Okay? So feeling is the path, because we cannot logically figure out the new world. Because the logic only knows what we've done. We need something we've never done before. We need to live in a way we've never lived before. We need to figure out a life that's never been lived before. And we are only going to figure that out through feeling. The people who are going to thrive in the new world, who are going to make it to the new world, are the people who tapped into their feelings and used that as the way of determining how to move forward, based on information they couldn't possibly have known from a logical perspective. I could not have possibly have known that this was going to be a pandemic this year. But last year, I was on the floor crying to my husband, this time last year, saying we need a visa. And if we didn't have that visa right now, we would not be in the position we're in. And I had no way of knowing that, but I felt it. So this is the point. I followed my feelings all the way here. I can tell you this works. But it's a lot, and it takes a lot of trust, and it takes a lot of faith in the new way, and a faith in yourself, and a faith in reality to always be consistent, to trust pain and pleasure as grace. It is grace. Pain and pleasure is grace. You can trust it. Now let's start to lean in and learn from it. Stop making it mean that there's something wrong and bad about you, or that you're hopeless and that you're trapped, because that's not true. Okay? When pain is just a messenger, this is when we become liberated. We can start to feel and actually access the pain and ask the pain what it's trying to tell us, and what feels good and what feels bad, and why does it feel good and why does it feel bad. This is how we find freedom. Okay? So the way forward is feeling. That is what this is about. So we're going to talk about pain next week. Thank you for being here. Go watch my other YouTube videos. Come join the mystery school if this is resonating with you. And until next week, have a lovely, lovely week as much as you can. I know feeling is hard. Just the pain is just a messenger. It will teach you what you need to know. Okay? See you later.